Imagine this. Two women, identical twins, suddenly appear on the central reservation of a really busy motorway. M6, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And then, just like that, inexplicably, they bolt straight into oncoming traffic.
It's an absolutely terrifying image. Utter chaos.
Yeah, genuinely terrifying, and almost unbelievably, it was all captured on camera.
Right. It's the kind of event that just, screams for an explanation. You need to understand not just what happened, but why. Why did it all unfold like that?
Exactly. Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really plunging into the astonishing and deeply tragic case of Ursula and Sabina Eriksson, Swedish twin sisters. Their lives just took this completely unimaginable turn back in May 2008, right here in the UK.
And for this deep dive, we've really drawn heavily from a detailed Wikipedia entry. It gives us a good chronological account, the events, their background, the legal side of things, and maybe most importantly, the unsettling questions that are still there.
Yeah, definitely. So our mission here is to unpack this really complex story for you. We'll trace the sequence of these, well, bewildering incidents. We'll try to explore the psychiatric ideas that attempt to explain it, like folia do.
And we also need to look at the broader implications, right? For the justice system, for mental health care, it's crucial.
Absolutely. By the end of this, you should have a much clearer understanding of what happened in this truly rare and disturbing case.
And it's important to say this isn't just some bizarre true crime story for entertainment.
No, not at all.
It's a really profound look at how fragile the mind can be and the devastating impact mental illness can have, especially something as rare, as you mentioned, as folia do shared psychosis.
It's a stark reminder, isn't it? How quickly someone's reality can just shatter. And the ripple effect.
Yeah.
It affects everyone.
Exactly.
So, okay, let's start at the beginning. Who were Ursula and Sabina Eriksson?
Well, they were identical twins, born in Sweden, November 3rd, 1967. And everything we know suggests that before 2008, their lives were, pretty normal.
Right. No apparent history of mental health problems, no criminal records mentioned in the sources. Ursula was living over in the U.S. at the time.
And Sabina was in Ireland, actually, Mallow, County Cork. She was living there with her partner and their 2 children.
So stable lives,
Yeah.
seemingly, which just makes what happened next even more baffling.
Totally. The bizarre journey, it really kicks off on Friday, May 16th, 2008. Ursula travels from the U.S. to visit Sabina in Ireland.
Okay.
Then, for reasons that are still completely unclear, the sisters secretly leave Sabina's home. They don't tell her partner. They head to Liverpool, England, probably took a ferry.
And they turn up somewhere specific in Liverpool.
Yes,
Yeah.
they arrive at the St. Anne Street police station. This is Saturday morning now, May 17th, around 8:30 a.m. They're there supposedly to report concerns about the safety of Sabina's children.
Concerns about the children, okay?
Yeah, and the Liverpool police, they contact Dublin and find out that Sabina had actually had a big argument with her partner the night before she left.
Okay. So there was some tension there already.
Definitely some tension. But, nothing that screams impending shared psychosis, right? It makes you wonder, though, about those early signs. Were they missed? Are we even equipped to spot them?
That's a tough question. So after the police station, what happens?
Well, around 11:30 that same morning, they board a National Express coach, heading for London.
Right.
But this bus journey, it doesn't go smoothly. The driver starts getting suspicious. Their behavior's becoming erratic. They're clutching their bags really tightly, won't let him check them.
Like they were afraid of something.
Exactly. It gets to the point where the driver actually refuses to let them back on the bus after a stop, and he leaves them at Kiel services. That's an unscheduled stop, around 1:00 p.m.
Just leaves them there. Wow.
Yeah. And it wasn't just him. The manager at the service station also thought their behavior was odd, called the police too.
So the police get involved again.
They do. Officers arrive, talk to Ursula and Sabina, but ultimately they leave. They assess them as, quote, harmless.
Harmless. Looking back, that's difficult to hear.
It really is. It's one of those points where you have to ask, what cues were missed? Or were the signs just too subtle then? It's a chilling thought that the system designed to protect can sometimes inadvertently miss critical warning signs.
And the tragic thing is, we know what happened next.
Yeah, absolute chaos in the M6. From Kiel services, they leave on foot, and they walk straight onto the central reservation of the M6 motorway.
Onto the central reservation of one of the UK's busiest motorways.
Yep, and they immediately start trying to cross the lanes, causing mayhem, obviously. Sabina actually gets hit by a car, a Seat Leon, but apparently only sustained minor injuries at this point.
Minor injuries. After being hit on a motorway, incredible.
It is. And this is when things get even stranger, because Highways Agency officers arrive, police from the Central Motorway Police Group, and they happen to have a small TV crew with them.
Filming what?
A show called Motorway Cops. So this next part, it's all captured on video.
Okay, I think I know this footage. It's unforgettable.
It really is. While the officers are on the hard shoulder getting briefed, trying to help Sabina, who's been hit, Ursula suddenly, without any warning, just breaks free.
And runs.
Runs straight into the path of an articulated lorry, a Mercedes truck traveling at something like 56 miles per hour.
Oh my God.
It hits her side-on, crushes her legs instantly. Just horrific.
And Sabina?
Sabina sees this and almost immediately follows her sister. Darts straight out into the traffic. She's hit head-on by a Volkswagen Polo. High speed again.
It defies belief. How did they even survive that?
It's genuinely miraculous. Ursula's severely injured, obviously. Sabina is knocked unconscious for about 15 minutes.
But even after surviving that, their behavior, it didn't stop being bizarre, did it?
Not at all. Ursula, despite her horrific injuries, is resisting help, spitting at paramedics, screaming things like, "I recognize you, I know you're not real."
Not real. Wow.
And Sabina, when she comes around, she starts shouting, "They're going to steal your organs."
Steal her organs. This is pure delusion.
Absolutely. And then, to the complete shock of everyone there, Sabina somehow gets back on her feet. Officers are trying to persuade her to stay down for her own safety.
But she gets up.
She gets up, punches one of the police officers, PC Cope, right in the face.
Punches him.
Yep. And then runs again into the traffic on the other side of the motorway. It's just utter chaos. They finally manage to restrain her, handcuff her, sedate her.
It's just unbelievable. So, police initially thought maybe a suicide pact. Or drugs.
That was the initial suspicion, yeah,
Yeah.
given how synchronized and self-destructive it all was. But toxicology tests came back negative. No drugs, no alcohol. And the suicide pact theory was also eventually dismissed.
Which leaves that huge question.
Yeah.
What on earth was going on in their minds? What kind of break from reality leads to that?
That is the absolute core question, isn't it? A profound detachment. So Ursula, she's airlifted to hospital with her severe leg injuries.
Right, and Sabina.
Sabina's taken to hospital too, but then this is maybe one of the most perplexing parts of the whole story. She becomes calmer, relatively quickly.
Calmer after. All that.
Apparently so. Calm enough that she's released from the hospital just 5 hours later.
5 hours.
5 hours. Then she's taken into police custody. She remains relaxed, apparently cooperative. But she does make this really chilling statement to an officer.
What did she say?
She said, "We say in Sweden that an accident rarely comes alone. Usually at least one more follows, maybe two."
Oh, well, that sends a shiver down your spine.
Doesn't it? And then, on Monday, May 19th, she appears in court. She pleads guilty to trespassing on the motorway and hitting the police officer.
Okay.
And because she'd already spent a full night in custody, her sentence one day is deemed served. She's released without any full psychiatric evaluation.
Released. Just like that. After everything that happened on the M6.
Released. It's baffling, honestly. And it raises huge questions about the assessment process, the protocols, and ultimately about public safety, doesn't it?
It really does. Especially because, tragically, the story doesn't end there.
No. That release sets the stage for the next terrible chapter.
A tragic act of kindness. So, Sabina is now out. Where does she go? What does she do?
She's basically adrift. She starts wandering the streets of Stoke-on-Trent, trying to find the hospital where Ursula is. She's carrying her few belongings in a clear plastic bag the police gave her, and she's actually wearing her sister's green top.
She sounds completely lost and vulnerable.
Absolutely. A person clearly in profound distress, needing help, but now effectively alone on the streets.
And this is where Glenn Hollinshead comes into the story.
Yes. That evening, Monday, May 19th, around 7:00 p.m., two local men see her on Christchurch Street in Fenton. One is Glenn Hollinshead, 54 years old, self-employed welder, but also a qualified paramedic, former RAF guy. With him is his friend, Peter Malloy.
Okay.
Sabina seems friendly enough to them, apparently. A bit nervous, maybe. She strokes their dog. They start chatting. She asks them for directions to a B&B.
She's looking for somewhere to stay.
Right. And Glenn Hollinshead, described by his family later as just incredibly kind and willing to help anyone, he takes pity on her.
Oh.
He offers to take her back to his house nearby on Duke Street just to help her out. And Sabina accepts. She seems to relax a bit there. Talks about trying to find her sister in hospital.
So initially it seems okay.
For a short while. But the odd behavior starts up again pretty quickly. They're having drinks at the house, and Sabina keeps getting up, looking out the window constantly. Peter Malloy thought maybe she was hiding from an abusive partner,
Understandable assumption, given the
Yeah.
behavior.
But then it gets stranger. She offers both men cigarettes, but then quickly snatches them back, says they might be poisoned.
Poisoned. That's clear paranoia. Setting in again. Deep delusion.
Absolutely. It's a massive red flag. Peter Malloy leaves before midnight, feeling uneasy. Sabina stays the night at Glenn's house.
She stayed the night. After exhibiting that level of paranoia.
She did. And tragically, it shows how someone like Glenn, trying to be kind, might not recognize the depth of the danger presented by acute psychosis.
So the next day, May 20th.
The next day, around midday, Glenn actually calls his brother, trying to find out which local hospitals Sabina should check for Ursula. He's still trying to help her.
Still trying to help.
Yeah. Then later that evening, about 7:40 p.m., Glenn's making them both a meal. He pops out for literally a minute, just next door, to ask a neighbor if he can borrow some tea bags.
Just for a minute.
Just a minute. He comes back outside, staggering, bleeding heavily. He tells the neighbor, "She stabbed me." Then he collapses.
Oh, God.
He died right there. He'd been stabbed 5 times with a kitchen knife from his own home. His brother later said his last words were supposedly, "Look after my dog for me."
That's just heartbreaking. Absolutely senseless. A man killed for an act of kindness.
It's utterly tragic, and it starkly illustrates the unpredictable danger of untreated severe psychosis.
And Sabina. What did she do after attacking him?
As the neighbor calls 999, Sabina flees the house, but she grabs a hammer on her way out.
A hammer.
Yeah, and she's seen on CCTV running away, periodically hitting herself over the head with this hammer.
Hitting herself.
Yeah.
So the self-harm is continuing alongside the violence towards others.
Exactly. It's part of the same disturbed pattern. A passerby, a man named Joshua Gradage, sees this happening and bravely tries to tackle her to get the hammer off her.
Good on him. Did he manage?
He did tackle her, but as they're struggling, Sabina pulls a piece of roof tile out of her pocket.
A roof tile.
Yeah, a roof tile, and hits him on the back of the head with it.
Unbelievable.
The pursuit doesn't last much longer, though, because then Sabina runs towards a bridge over the A50 dual carriageway, and she jumps.
She jumped off the bridge.
Jumped. It was about a 12-meter drop, 40 feet. She survived incredibly, but broke both her ankles again and fractured her skull. She ended up back in the hospital.
Back in hospital.
Yeah.
After leaving a man dead and injuring another who tried to help, the devastation is just immense.
It really is. This whole sequence of events, from the M6 to Glenn Hollinshead's death to the bridge jump, it's almost too much to comprehend.
So she's in hospital again. What happens legally now?
Well, she's arrested while she's still recovering in hospital on June 6th, 2008. She's eventually discharged on September 11th and immediately taken into custody and formally charged with Glenn Hollinshead's murder that same day.
And Ursula. What happened with her?
Ursula's recovery was longer because of the leg injuries, but she was also released from hospital around September. She returned to Sweden, apparently without incident, and then later moved back to the U.S. to Bellevue, Washington.
To Ursula, who displayed very similar, deeply disturbing behavior on the motorway, essentially gets to resume her life, while Sabina faces a murder charge.
Exactly. And that difference really highlights this key aspect of the folie à deux theory they discussed later, the idea of a primary and a secondary sufferer.
Right. Let's get into that, the legal unpacking. How did the trial go?
Well, Sabina eventually pleaded guilty, but not to murder. She pleaded guilty to manslaughter with diminished responsibility. That was on September 2nd, 2009.
Diminished responsibility, meaning her mental state at the time was accepted as reducing her culpability.
Precisely. And what's really crucial here is that throughout the entire police investigation, the interrogations, the trial itself, Sabina offered no explanation for her actions. Her response to almost all questions was simply no comment.
No explanation at all, even for killing Glenn Hollinshead.
None recorded. And perhaps surprisingly, that dramatic M6 video footage, it wasn't shown in court, it wasn't used as evidence.
Why not? It seems so relevant to her state of mind.
The exact reasons aren't fully detailed in the sources we have, but both the prosecution and the defense actually agreed on a key point. They agreed she was insane at the time she killed Glenn Hollinshead, but that she had become sane again by the time of her trial.
Sane again? How does that work? How can sanity fluctuate so dramatically?
It's a really complex area. It points towards the nature of some acute psychotic disorders, which can be episodic. You can have these intense breaks from reality, followed by periods where the symptoms lessen significantly or go into remission, perhaps aided by medication or just the passage of time and a change in environment.
It's still bewildering, though. So the defense's argument centered on this shared psychosis idea.
Yes, primarily folie à. The argument was that Sabina was the secondary sufferer. Her sister, Ursula, was proposed as the primary source of the delusion.
So Ursula had the initial delusion, and Sabina somehow caught it, absorbed it.
That's the essence of folie à, yeah. It's a rare condition where delusional beliefs get transmitted from one person, the primary, usually dominant individual, to another, the secondary, often more suggestible or dependent person, typically within a close relationship.
And being identical twins makes that more likely.
Potentially. The incredibly close bond, shared genetics, maybe shared environmental factors, it could create fertile ground for such a shared delusion to take root, especially if they become isolated together. The defense also floated an alternative diagnosis, acute polymorphic delusional disorder, and there were reports she said she heard voices she couldn't understand.
Okay, so how did the judge respond to this?
Justice Saunders accepted the plea of manslaughter with diminished responsibility. This was on September 2nd, 2010. He concluded Sabina had a low level of culpability for the killing because of her mental illness.
Low culpability. That must have been hard for Glenn Hollinshead's family to hear.
Extremely hard, and Justice Saunders acknowledged that. He specifically said the sentence was about protecting the public going forward, not about reflecting the family's grief or putting a value on Glenn's life. He stated her delusions dictated her behavior, and that it wasn't a situation where she could have realistically done anything to prevent the illness coming on.
So what was the sentence?
5 years in prison. She was sent to Bronzefield Women's Prison. Apparently she turned to Christianity while inside.
5 years. And did she serve the full term?
Well, because she'd already spent 439 days in custody waiting for the trial and sentencing, that counted towards the 5 years. So she became eligible for release much sooner. She was released on parole in 2011 and returned to Sweden.
Released in 2011, so effectively served about 3 years, a bit less maybe, after the sentencing itself.
Something like that, yeah. And unsurprisingly, the aftermath brought a lot of unanswered questions and quite strong criticism of the criminal justice system's handling of the case.
From whomingly?
Peter Malloy, Glenn's friend who was there that night, was very critical. And the local MP, Rob Flello, also raised serious concerns about how she could have been released after the M6 incident.
Yeah, you can absolutely see why it feels like a systemic failure somewhere.
It does. And Glenn Hollinshead's brother, Gary, his words were incredibly powerful and really capture that feeling.
What did he say?
He said something remarkable. He said, "We don't hold her responsible the same as we wouldn't blame a rabid dog for biting someone. She is ill."
Wow. That's extraordinary compassion.
Isn't it? But he immediately followed it with, "But her mental disorder should have been recognized much earlier." He placed the responsibility squarely on the system that failed to assess her properly and let her out. He emphasized Glenn was just trying to help someone he saw in distress. It was just his nature.
Acknowledging the illness, but condemning the failure to act. That hits hard.
It really does. It captures the tragedy from the family's perspective perfectly. The senseless loss, coupled with the feeling that it could, maybe should, have been prevented.
And wasn't there something later revealed about the police actions on the M6 from that TV footage?
Yes. This is perhaps the most haunting detail. In 2012, some edited footage from that Motorway cop show surfaced on YouTube.
And what did it show?
It showed police officers right there at the roadside on the M6 after Ursula had been hit, but while Sabina was still there, before she punched the officer and ran again.
Oh, yeah.
It showed them actively discussing whether they should detain Sabina under the Mental Health Act. They were talking about sectioning her, getting her assessed.
They discussed it.
Right, they discussed it. The very action that, had it been taken, might have prevented Glenn Hollinshead's death just 2 days later. But for whatever reason, that decision wasn't made. That step wasn't taken.
That is just devastating to know. Like a concrete missed opportunity.
A stark, recorded example of the system potentially having the chance to intervene effectively, but failing to do so. It's incredibly chilling.
So, wrapping this up, this whole deep dive, from that strange departure from Ireland, the absolute horror on the M6, the awful, tragic killing of Glenn Hollinshead, and then the legal and medical aftermath. It just highlights this incredibly complex, tangled mess, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Mental health, individual vulnerability, and, systemic failures.
Absolutely. It's such a powerful, if deeply disturbing, illustration of how fast and how devastatingly acute mental illness can strike. And it underscores, crucially, the importance of early, accurate, and decisive psychiatric assessment and intervention.
It really makes you think about the impact one person's actions can have, especially when those actions seem driven by forces completely outside their own control. So maybe the final thought we leave you with is this. If that footage showed police actively discussing a mental health detention on the M6 roadside, a detention that never actually happened, it really forces you to ask, doesn't it? How many other potential tragedies, maybe less dramatic but still significant, could be prevented if we had more proactive, more decisive mental health intervention?
And perhaps more fundamentally, what are the real societal challenges? Stigma, resources, legal thresholds, maybe even just understanding that still stop us from putting those effective interventions in place consistently.
A difficult question, but one this case absolutely compels us to confront.
Yeah, definitely. It challenges us to look beyond just this one horrifying story and think about how we as a society respond or fail to respond to mental health crises happening around us every day.